Oh, so I don't have to use that. Great. Oh, okay. I am absolutely delighted to be here. When I was invited to come, I thought, these are the crew I'd love to talk to and enjoy time with, because my time getting ready that the Lord used to prepare me um, is where you are right now. So I am going to take a giant leap back. And I'm not going to be talking about the book. You can read that, right? By the way, that couple that you saw, that was Terry and Vic Gill, and the guy chopping wood was Dick Pronicki. That's in book 2. So you can pick up on that, okay? And there's pictures in the book so you can see who Babe and Mary are too. And I'm so happy to have Hal come, and Wendy's mom. That's so sweet of you all to come. Usually I should be scared to death. But for some odd reason, well, I know the reason, I'm not. I was the shyest, most timid person on the face of the earth, I felt. I'd hide behind my mom's skirts if anyone came to the door when I was a kid, and always just, now you can't shut me up. I grew up at Fargo Lake, Washington, one of 9 kids. That tells you something. But I was on the lower end of the scale. So I was number 7th and the smallest, 3 pounds, 4 ounces. Okay. And so no one really expected that much of me. Mom put me in a shoebox behind the stove to keep warm and bathed me in olive oil, and I had cotton all around me. I was just a tiny little baby, and my sister would pack me on a dolly blanket. That means dolly, not a machine. A dolly blanket, okay. Well, anyway, I was the only girl in my 3rd grade class, small country school, like one-room school thing, and we'd walk to school sometimes. I learned the farm, learned how to milk cows, slop the pigs, feed the chickens, gather the eggs, climb the trees, do the garden, can, cook, preserve, pick fruit off the trees. I learned a lot in my young age, and I had a lot of responsibility trying to help Mother because Dad lost his life when the tractor flipped on the farm. Of course, that devastated all of us, hurt our hearts. And that's the first time I'd ever seen my mother cry. And so I tried I shouldn't say best, because sometimes I wonder, did I do my best? I was trying to help Mom, but I did get to Sunday school. There was some little country churches in the area. So I got to go to a little country church, and I was picking up little things about John 3:16 and just fun little things to learn about the Bible. I knew that the Bible was very important. So, but it took me a while to gather enough to understand. And at 13 years of age, I accepted Christ. How much time do I have? I've got so much to say. I don't want to blow it here for you. As a young child, we picked beans, we picked strawberries, we picked wild berries. We do everything we could to get a little bit of money, because what little bit of money that Mom could get for us, what was it, $18 a month? Something really small. But we had cows. Eventually, I went to school, and that was really hard for me to go off and leave mother. My mom actually went out and got a job working in a nursing home and cooking. She was a good cook. She raised a big family. And the reason I went off to school was I knew that I felt like if I didn't go, I'd be home the rest of my life. I might not ever go then. I had two sisters that were married and had a family. I had my brothers that went in World War II and came home. God's grace. When the war broke out, Mom and Dad were sitting by the radio, and I could see the tears coming in their eyes. That was another time, I guess I did. I saw tears in their eyes. I guess that was the first time. The second time was when Dad went and my mom showed tears. Well, anyway, let's get on. I graduated from Battleground High School, and my first year away to school was at Prairie Bible Institute in Canada. I worked in the laundry. I worked any time I had a chance. And my mother finally, at the end of that year, in order to get me back home, sold my brother's cow. He was still in the service. She sold his cow. And then she sent me the $200 from his cow. And I was in Canada, and the train station was way across that field. The snow was so high, and I had a red coat. And I marched through that deep snow, and I got over to the train station and got back. And many years later, after he had lost a leg coming out of the woods, I bought him a new leg. $200. So anyway, that's just a sideline. It's hard for me not to throw in these sidelines because there's a lot of sidelines. And it's kind of hard just to talk about myself, but there's so many things I want to share with you because you are facing some of these, I imagine. Do you all have enough money to get through school? How about this year? How about next year? The next year? Well, I doubt it. When I came back, then I enrolled, thanks to a pastor that steered me that way, to Multnomah. And Multnomah was good for me. So was Prairie. I learned, but I was awfully lonesome up there. When you don't know anybody and you just lost your dad, you know. So anyway, I cleaned some of those big homes. I'd go do all kinds of stuff to help them in their big houses. And they'd pay me. But maybe I'd have enough to get back on the bus to school. I finally, after a few weeks, figured it out. Well, Doris, you're not even going to make it to work, let alone through school, if you don't get a better paying job. So I started praying about that. Lord, you know, I have to have work. I had filled out a government deal to get a GS, whatever I could get. And I finally got a notice from them. If I moved to Washougal, I could get this GS3 job. which wasn't the best. Isn't 1 and 2 the better? So I could get a GS3 job and move to there. I didn't want to leave school. I loved studying the scriptures. That doesn't mean I was so smart. I had to work for every grade I got because I was working too and stayed up late at night to study. But what am I going to do? So there was a pastor that had come to the little church where I used to go at home, Charter Oak. He and his wife were missionaries in China years ago. She was a missionary to the boat people of China, and his dad was a liaison officer for the government and worked for Shell Oil. Well, they married, sweetest couple, and he and she were the godliest people I had ever met in my life. And they really meant a lot to me. Anyway, they're the ones that led me to the Lord. And okay, I got to keep on track here or we won't get done here. And just talking about this stuff makes me shaky. At Multnomah, oh, yeah, Mr. Braga. I was outside the building where you go get your mail, and his office was to the right. I knew his office was there, and I had to go get my mail, but it just started going through my head. Go see Mr. Braga. Go see Mr. Braga. I don't want to go see Mr. Braga. Go see Mr. Braga. It was just like, not loud, but I knew it was there. Go see Mr. Braga. Go see Mr. Braga. I didn't want to go. I turn around and I go this way. Go see Mr. Braga. And then all of a sudden, I plopped into his office. And he's, well, Doris Ann. That's what my family calls me. Doris Ann, not Doris Ann, Doris Ann. What can I do for you today? So I told him my dilemma. Remember, I started school with $25. And we talked. And we prayed. We asked God about this little 3-pound, 4-ounce little girl inside. He says, would you excuse me a minute? He went to the back room and called Mr. Anderson from the Portland Medical Clinic, downtown Portland. And then he said, they want to talk to you. So I got on the phone, scared as could be, nervous. He wanted to know how my English was. That's my best subject. And I said, fine, I'm straight A student in English. Don't ask me the rest of it. And so they hired me. They had a girl quitting from 1 o'clock till 5. And she was going to go on to school. And they needed someone to put in her place. Guess what? He hired me. So then I would, by the way, I was in the morning times fixing sack lunches, working in the salad room and stuff before school, and then go to class, and then staying up late at night studying, because you have to study if you go to college. And Multnomah had synthesis class, and that was hard because I wasn't one to memorize real easy. I had to work really hard to pull some of those off. And then I started in And I would get on the bus, come back late at night, eat a late supper, because the students will all have eaten, ate a late supper, and then went to my room and tried to study and get ready for classes the next day and the whole round again. But you know what? That job put me clear through school. And then in the summertime, I worked in the summertime too. Took care of me. And what am I leaving out? There was a prayer group at Multnomah, a European prayer group. Well, my grandparents came from Germany, and I never met my grandparents. I thought if the Lord wanted to send me anywhere, it would be Europe, because my dad was full-blooded German. Mom was more Irish, Dutch, German, English. So, but anyway, but you know, I started praying that the Lord would burden the hearts and help my classmates to realize that the guys that came back from Alaska, they'd been there in the service, and they talked about the villages. They need to know those villages really need help up there. So I was praying the Lord would burden the hearts of the people, the hearts of my fellow students, to go to Alaska and help them. And someplace along the line, I was reading every Eskimo book, every book about Greenland and all these northern villages. I just enjoyed reading them. Anyway, one day in chapel, there was this missionary pastor from the Dakotas, and he was showing pictures of the native families from the Dakotas. And I was there. I went back to my room, fell to my knees by my bed, and I said, Lord, I'll even go to Alaska if you want me to. And it was like the Lord took a big, big bucket of peace and just poured it over my head. And I said, Lord, don't give me this peace if you don't mean it. Oh, me. What next? There's a couple more things I wanted to tell you. Sheesh, help me. I didn't want to have to pick those up. There's 4 pages there. Oh, I know what it was, and I think I'm just going to read it to you, because if I don't, I'll leave this out. Okay. The Lord's, okay, bucket of peace. And so I went to work, okay, as usual. Catch the bus, eat your bite of lunch on the bus if you can get a chance to. And you get off the bus and you walk up 12 blocks to the clinic, okay. But as I was walking along the street, there were some awfully big posters in the window on Alaska. I never seen them before. Never saw them before. And when I went home, and it was late, and I turned the radio on and thought, well, maybe I'll keep awake if I turn the radio on. The news was on Alaska. And I'm not making this up. I did not make it up. Did I drop something? Okay. Okay. I had not heard the last 10 minutes before my heart was on heaven and I was listening. The Lord was nudging me toward Alaska. By the way, I had some scripture. I'm not going to read it to you because you're going to read it for yourself. 2 Timothy chapter 2. Okay, that's your assignment. You don't have to read it right now. Then I talked to the advisor at school because we also had, assignments on the weekend. I worked for the Youth for Christ for a few years. And then you'll laugh at me. I directed the school choir, and I could still remember it. Not the school choir, my home church choir. Me, a shy little girl that doesn't know how to do things. Okay. I talked to an advisor at school. He strongly suggested I make arrangements to speak with General Director of Arctic Missions, because I kind of bared my heart and I didn't want to, but they have a way of pulling things out. He even suggested I apply. I came out of his office, put my back up against the wall. Who does he think he is? Telling me I should go apply to Arctic Missions. I did promise to see Johnny Gillespie and talk to him. Johnny was a great guy. Just really, he was the director of Arctic Missions. And his wife is still living, going to turn 100 this year. Monday. This is the granddaughter of Johnny and Nadine. I had to put that in. But before doing so, I went to a tiny little room that we had on campus. Some of us seniors were able to, 15 minutes. Some of us seniors were able to live off campus in the pink house over there. And there was 3 stories. And up on the top story was this tiny little room. And it was just about that, maybe a little longer than that. You can get in it, and that was all. And I knew it was there. And believe me, I needed to talk to the Lord by myself, desperately. And so I went up there and I crawled into that little room. And see, I'm tied to my notes here. I just have to throw this away. And I had some reasons I could not go, clutched tight in my hand. I can't leave Mom. And I don't want to break her heart. And I could remain single the rest of my life. What a plague. I was the only one out of our whole big family. So, I don't want to go up there and be a single old maid. Hey, I've had a great, fun, special life that the Lord cared for me. I have never asked him for more than what he's given, except that I could do better for him, because I still have the insecurities deep within. I should not be up here talking to you. There's other people to do that. Why would they want me to talk to you? Because I wanted to so bad. I really wanted to do this because I knew that I had something stored in the closet there that you would maybe benefit from, and because I care about students. And the third thing, I die of loneliness. Who wants to go back into the villages and or wherever in Alaska and be there all by yourself and not know the people too well and cold? I've always suffered from cold. I never liked to be cold. See, I wore something heavier. But thankfully, Flo was from Michigan, and she could handle cold. I had to wear lots of long johns, lots of wool socks, sometimes 3 pair in your muclucks because the house wasn't warm. Anyway, I didn't want to die of loneliness either, but these are the things I hold tight in my hand. But Lord, I not only I knew that if I open my hand and let the Lord, He will take out the things that He wants out of there, but He'll also pour in the blessings that He wanted. And He has. He removed the doubts. He reminded me of His power to care for my mother and the family, and He would never leave me nor forsake me. He'd be with me even to the end of the age. He gave me Psalm 118:27, and there was a bookmark that someone had left in that tiny little room on the desk. Do you know what it said? It said, pray and purpose to go. Oh, yeah. And I did. And I think, commit to the Lord. Not that you want to go here, here, here. Commit to the Lord that you want to follow Him. Follow Him. He's the same Lord, the same God that led Moses, that led everybody else. We are small, but it also tells us in the Word that He knows our name. He knows how many hair is on our head. Oh. And one more thing. I gotta quit, don't I? At Multnomah, I knew there was going to be a speaker. So I wanted to hear him from Alaska. So I walked up there. I had gotten application papers from Johnny. And this particular Sunday afternoon, when the speaker would be there, I filled those papers out. And I said, Lord, I'm not going to look for them, but if you want me to turn these papers into Johnny Gillespie, you could bring Johnny and Nadine to me. And I thought I was safe. It was a big square building. What's the name of that church there in Portland? Big square building, big Central Bible Church, yes. Oh, so I know that I won't have any trouble. I'll just take them with me just in case, because I have asked you this. So I go in there and sit off in a corner, and music starts, and everything's going really great. About ready to start singing the first song, and someone comes and taps me on the shoulder. Would you move down row 1 and make room for my husband and I? Yeah, it was Nadine and Johnny. There were people all around us. By rights, I should have been hidden. The Lord did that, you know. Christ is the power of God and the wisdom of God, because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. He has been the strength of my life. I wouldn't change it for anything out of his will. Only I feel like he's my confidence. He's my joy. He's my reason for living. All my family are gone except for one brother, my younger brother. And I'm happy as a clam. Thank you for being able to listen to me, and forgive me for going over 5 minutes.